You're listening to Bernadette Gold Unfiltered, which means you're ready for a new level in business, health, and life. Hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. No filter, no fluff. Let's go. We've spent 10 episodes naming what's happening: the attack, the cage, the comfort, the fear, the programs, the ceiling, the visibility freezes, the body, the difference between coping and clearing. And I imagine some of you have been listening and wondering, okay, but what's the other side of this actually look like? Not the Instagram version, not the highlight reel, not the carefully curated success story, the real version. What does it actually look like when the work is done? When the programs are cleared? When the identity shifts? And when the body's been honored and the visibility freeze has been released? Well, that's what this episode's about. And I want to start with the thing that surprises most people when they come through to the other side. See, they stop worrying about being judged. Not because they decided to stop, not because they read a book or took a course on confidence, because the program that was generating that worry is no longer running. And when the program's gone, the worry goes with it. Quietly, no fanfare. One day they just noticed that they didn't think about what someone thought of them. They didn't have to rehearse how they were going to say something before they actually said it. They didn't check whether they had permission to take up that much space. They just took up space freely, naturally, like themselves. That's when they understand what the programs were actually costing them, not just in business, but in energy. The mental bandwidth that was going towards managing other people's opinions, suddenly available for creating, for building, for being present in conversations and relationships that actually matter. The second thing that surprises people is the courage. They always thought courage was something you manufactured or summoned through discipline and willpower, or talking yourself into it before every hard thing. But then they discover, after they've done the work, that life no longer requires some weird mask of courage. They just have it. Not because they became a different person, because they became fully themselves. And the real you, the one underneath all of your programs and survival strategies, is not afraid. Not in the way the programs were. That person, that you're grounded. You know what you know. You trust what you see. You move from that place without having to convince yourself first. And then the third thing is clarity. And this one's hard to describe until you've actually felt it. When you have done the inner work, when you've cleared what was not yours to begin with, you've chosen intentionally what you believe, decided what you're going to do and what you won't, the second guessing stops. And it's not because you don't have any doubts ever, but because doubts no longer are in control and run the show. You can hear a doubt, acknowledge it, but keep moving. Because you know the difference now between a genuine signal or an old program trying to protect you from something that really isn't a threat. That clarity, that quiet, that unshakable knowing is the most valuable thing a human can have. And it is available to everyone. It's not a personality trait that you either have or you don't. As the natural result of doing the work that we've been talking about in this series, that's how it happens. The next thing I want to talk about is alignment. and what that actually feels like. Because we use that word a lot in this space, and I want to make sure it doesn't become another empty concept. Alignment's not this feeling you chase, it's what remains when the things that were out of alignment have been cleared. It's the experience of moving through your life and your work and your relationships and feeling like they are actually yours and your choice. You're no longer performing a version of yourself for some audience or for approval. You're not living inside someone else's definition of what life should look like. Just yours, your values, your priorities, your rules, your pace, your vision. And here's what I want to say about rules specifically. I know some people hear the word rules and boundaries and they think of rigidity or walls, closing yourself off. That's not what this kind of freedom looks like. The person on the other side of this work's not closed. They're open, but they're open selectively, intentionally, by their own choice. They give their energy to what deserves it. They protect what matters. And they say no to what doesn't align. Again, not from fear and not from people pleasing, not from the old programs, from a clear, grounded, conscious choice. That is freedom, real freedom. Not the billionaire class version of freedom, which is not freedom at all. It's lawlessness. It's the unchecked ego doing whatever it wants with no regard for consequences to anybody. That's not freedom. That's a program with a private jet. Real freedom is something completely different. It's the freedom that comes from knowing exactly who you are and from having carefully curated your own belief system, not inherited or borrowed, not had it installed before you were old enough to question it, but chosen it consciously, deliberately as the person you actually are. And the people who've done this work and who've come through to this place, they're not dependent on an economy or a market, other people's approval, just to know their own worth. All of those things can be happening around them, and the uncertainty, the instability, even the noise is happening, but they're steady. Maybe it affects their bank account. Maybe it changes the way they do things, but they're not affected at the core of them because they know who they are is independent of the external conditions. That's what unshakable is. It's not a brand promise. It's a lived reality. Here's what else becomes available on the other side of this work. Creativity. The creativity that you buried under programs and survival strategies and constant management of other people's opinions and judgments. Your creativity comes back fully because creativity requires a certain kind of safety, not external safety, internal safety. The safety of knowing that your worth is not contingent on the reception and acceptance of what you create. That you can make something, put it in the world, and be okay regardless of what happens next. That safety, that internal, unshakable safety, that's what this work produces. And the creativity that flows from it is unlike anything you've accessed before because it's not coming from the part of you that was trying to prove something. It's coming from the part of you that simply has something to say and knows it's worth saying, whether that's through your work, through your speech, or through your art. Now, the new energy that's rising right now, we talked about in episode 8, because the old model's dying. That dominance, the extraction, the build fast and break things philosophy that treats people as resources to be used rather than human beings to be honored, that model's on its way out. And what's replacing it, what's being built right now by the people who've done this work, is something completely different. It's a model built on consciousness, higher consciousness, on intentionality, on the understanding that your inner world and your outer world are not separate. It's being built by people with good hearts and good intentions. People who want good for themselves and good for others. Not the minority running the old model for their own benefit. The majority. The ones who were told they didn't have power. But they're discovering that the power was never outside of themselves. It was always here, underneath the programs, the fear, the cage, that they didn't even know they were in. And as more people come through to this place, as more people clear what was not theirs and align to who they actually are, built from that foundation, the new model, the new energy gets stronger. New systems get built, not as extraction systems, systems of contribution, of collaboration, of genuine value, freely offered and fairly received. That's what's coming. And you, the person who found this series, this podcast, who listened this far, who recognized themselves in nearly every episode, you're part of it, whether you know it yet or not. So here's the question I want you to sit with before the final episode. What becomes possible for you and for the people around you when you finally stop surviving and start living from who you actually are, the highest version? I'll see you in episode 12. This is Bernadette Gold, Unfiltered.